Spoiler alert. In this show, we talk about Ted Lasso and the show's characters. Welcome back to Big Boss Biscuits. I'm your host, Kirsten Penalosa. And this show is where we trade the polished version of the story for the honest and real stuff. Some messy career turns, failures along the way, hard conversations with our team members, and leadership lessons that were yucky but stuck. I believe that the best career advice comes from people that have gone through something, and they deliver it with warmth and a lot of candor. So, pour something good and settle in, because today's guest is refreshingly honest, vulnerable, and real, talking about why she didn't fit in this seat that she was holding. Today's episode is built around a concept from EOS, the Entrepreneurial Operating System, and that concept is that every great team needs the right people in the right seat. The right person shares your values and shows up to make the organization better. And the right seat means that the role actually fits not just the strengths and talents, but also their interests. And here's a part that no one really likes to talk about and acknowledge. You can be the right person and still be in the wrong seat. Taylor Coleman is a systems thinker and former CX leader who believes good leadership is rooted in clarity, trust, and care. And believe me, I know, because she and I worked together at Career Plugin. She was one of my first hires when I joined the company. So she joined as a frontline agent, quickly became a tier 2 support agent, eventually a team lead of a specialized team, and then she revamped the entire tier 2 team into the product support function. So she evolved the team, made it bigger, and developed people into specialties across different disciplines. She eventually made it to senior manager of the team. So by every external measure, she'd made it. And then she did something that most of us probably just frown upon. She admitted the leadership title didn't fit, and she asked for a different seat. So today's conversation is about these three things. First, the courage to say no to a leadership position, to look at prestige, the raise, the respect, the added responsibility, and say, this isn't where I do my best work. Taylor is honest about how hard that was and why it's one of the bravest career moves you can make. The second part is, a pivot is not a demotion. Stepping out of leadership or managing people to return to the work that actually fills your cup isn't a red flag on your resume, despite what a lot of people may say. It's self-awareness in action. Taylor's story is proof that moving sideways or even taking a step back can be the smartest forward move you'll ever make. And the third point, great leaders know how to spot when a talented person is in the wrong seat, and they help them find the right one instead of pushing them out of the company. Because the difference between Taylor's exit and her evolution came down to leaders who recognized her strengths and built a role around them rather than handing her an exit plan. So this conversation is a real one, and I think you're going to leave it looking at your own seat a little differently. A lot of leaders get into leadership because they were amazing individual contributors and get promoted as the team is growing, or because they think that's the only way they can continue in their career and rise or increase their income. How was it for you? And where are you now in terms of your leadership?
I had a really not traditional path into leadership. I worked several different types of like customer facing jobs, and then ultimately I landed where I am now, which is software. I was a high performer. I, did my job, but I was bored at it. I was understimulated and I really just wanted a lot of variety. Like, what can I do? Do you have any projects for me? And I believe I asked you that exact question in a one-on-one. From there, I went from tier 1 to tier 2, was doing really well and created a whole lot of processes, did a lot of systems, and then I started getting bored again. The way the rest of the team was growing, there was this need for a manager of that team. And you took a chance on me. It's funny because I had been clear with you, I don't want to be a leader. I don't want to manage a team. I don't want to be responsible for that. But I was also at a point, I was like, what else is there? What else can I do? And so I became manager. At the time, there were 3 of us, me and 2 other amazing women. But from that, I was able to grow it into 7 people in 6 different specialties. Currently, I'm the senior manager of product support. So we went from team lead of tier 2 to senior manager of this whole specialized team of incredible individuals. And all of that was because you took a chance on me. You saw something.
I remember you saying, I don't want to be in a leadership position. And then time progressed and you were doing all the things that you just shared, but you missed to say is an important thing, which is building relationships with the people around you and building trust and credibility by implementing all the things that you did. Because the things that you did were not primarily, but definitely centered around making the life easier for the people on the tech support team. And that allowed others to buy into what you were doing. So you were essentially doing the work of a leader without having the title. When the time came and I had to hand off the team to someone else, it was like, okay, I can hire from outside or I can look within. And at that point, something had changed with you. It was like, okay, how about now? And something in your head clicked. So you became a manager. Do you remember what clicked and what happened as you stepped into leadership position?
The thing that really clicked was I was seeing good leadership. I was seeing good managers. A lot of what had changed, like between my previous jobs and where I'm at currently, is I had good managers as people, but they were not good managers as leaders. And so when I came into Career Plug, like I had a lot of hesitancy around managers. I've been burned so many. And then through my time and tenure with Career Plug and seeing how you worked and other managers in the company, not only are they good people, they're good leaders. They're leading by example. Maybe I can do that too. Maybe it's not that bad because up to that point, I always had that kind of image in my mind of the boss that comes down hard versus the kind of care and support that I was getting and still get to this day. And that gave me that like, okay, maybe I can do this too.
You were an excellent leader and something then happened.
I progressed pretty quickly from team lead of tier 2 to manager to senior manager. And I loved every minute of it until I was in a leadership book club doing John Maxwell's 5 Levels of Leadership. And phenomenal book, highly recommend it. I was with my other peers, Aaron and Sydney, phenomenal women. I love working with them. Sydney and I, we were hired at the same time. We grew at the same rate. And we're going through this book club talking about these concepts. And I had this like a light bulb moment because we were talking about, different concepts in the book as far as like relationship building and, those difficult moments that every leader experiences. And they spoke with such passion and like conviction for what they were doing. And I was reading the exact same stuff and I was in the exact same discussions. And I'm just like, it's not resonating in the same way. And about that same time, I had recently had a performance review that was phenomenal. But there was one line that validated but also kind of gutted me that said, "You're underutilized in your position. I have no desire to be director. I don't want to lead a department. That's the only thing above me. What else is there?" And so between the book club and having the technical proficiency of leading a team, but not the passion for it, I came to this moment where it's like, maybe this isn't for me anymore. I'm not in love with it. I love my team. I love my people. I love the relationships that I've built. But what cup is this filling? So that was the moment where I was like, okay, I need something else. I need to do different.
It's brave for a leader to say, I'm actually not passionate about. We live in a society where we are told from very early on, well, if you studied this, you have to pursue this as your career. And then, I mean, especially here in the US, where you go to college at, I don't know, 19 or something, and then you essentially have to stick with your career for the rest of your life. I mean, when I was 19, I had no idea what I wanted to do with the rest of my life. And I had to make a decision that would impact me for the rest of my life. So we're told early on, you have to stick with it. And saying, I don't want to, I'm not passionate about it, I consider that extremely courageous. So for you to then say, I'm in a leadership position, which obviously it comes with a title, it comes with certain prestige and respect, it comes with career opportunities, money, obviously, and then say, nope, that doesn't vibe with me. I'm not buying into it in the way I probably should. So when you have that realization How did you act upon it and how did you make peace with it? And I think that's really important for others to hear so they find the courage to find something else.
Transparently, I had several good cries about it. This is a major shift because I went to college for history. I'm not doing anything with history, so I didn't expect to be in this position in the first place. But at one point in time, I loved it and I enjoyed it, and it was the only thing that I wanted. But now that I had it, where do I go from here? And first, I cried a lot and I thought about it a lot. But beyond that, in that exact same performance review, where I was sitting down with my boss, I was like, okay, I'm underutilized in my current position, then where can I be utilized? Because the thing that fills my cup is giving value, helping people in the way that they need to be helped, not necessarily managing them or managing expectations or the accountability or the discussions. I love having those relationships. But at my current moment, I've done what I can for them most of the time. So where do I go from here? Like, and I think any other company would have been like, well, let's give you an exit plan. And well, actually, we need a lot more internal efficiency, more processes. We need things to be cleaner. And everything that I built before I was a leader was right up that alley. So the thought of doing it again and getting paid to do it is about as close to a dream job as I'm going to get. So over the past year, we've been building out a new IC role within the company that is very much a lateral move because that was another concern of mine. Being a woman and being in software, I wanted to make sure that whatever I ended up putting on my resume did not look like a demotion. So we've worked out something that looks very much like a lateral move, strategic solutions architect. I will be working internally with other managers. So the people that I've been leading alongside for the past couple years, getting their teams more efficient, making things clearer, removing a lot of the friction that happens when you have smaller companies. And really, I had the support of Jenny, who is the president. She has this 20,000-foot view of this is a need. And she saw, you don't love what you're doing, but you're good at this thing. Let's put these two together.
It sounds like the biggest differentiator is that you had a supporting boss
Yes,
and that
absolutely.
you were able to define a new role. What would you say if someone doesn't have that supportive boss? What would have happened?
I thought of that scenario too. I'm very, very fortunate to be in the position that I am and have that support network. But there's always that what if? What if there wasn't a role like this? What if the budget wasn't there for it? And anybody who's in that position, I would encourage them, like, okay, take a pause, take the things that you enjoy doing, that you're good at, and that you have experience in, and try to find the next best fit. Look at who you have in your network who might be doing something similar and try to lay as much groundwork for your exit as you can. I'm somebody that I cannot move until I have my next step planned out. But there's also people who will jump from the plane and hope that the parachute works. But as long as you have some idea of what you're really passionate about, what actually drives you, and what you're willing to compromise on, I think you can land very solidly somewhere else. Even without the support network of, having a boss or like the wiggle room to create something where you're at, as long as you're certain you know what you enjoy and what you're good at and what you want to do, I think you can land just about it.
You just said it, some people just jump and hope for the parachute to work. I'm one of those. I just jumped and like, all right, let's see where I land. I hope I land soft. So I think I'm still in my free fall. One thing that I'm also thinking about a lot is I don't know if it's US specific or in general. I know that a lot of people don't necessarily identify with their work or with their job and title. The understanding of the transaction between a company and their employees is you are hired to do your job. There isn't the same level of identification with your job and company. I've seen it in myself where I equal my job, my title with my identity. So when I stepped away from the tech or corporate world, and a big title and big money. It was for me, and I think I'm still processing it. This, who am I now? What am I worth without that? Did I make the right decision of stepping away from it? Because if I don't have the title, do I have the same worth? So thinking about the Roy Kent situation where he decides to retire from being a player, but football was his life. And Danny Rojas says it all the time, football is life. So Roy went through the same. This is who I was, and now who am I? How is it for you, and how are you processing that?
I love the Roy comparison because I believe it's a conversation he has with Ted and Beard, where he's left his previous team, he was like, I wanted to leave before they were just keeping me around for no reason. And to a certain extent, I do feel a little bit like that. Like, I've done everything that I can as the leader of this team. It's time to give it to somebody else. And as far as it being part of my identity, there's been during this transition this really interesting thing that I've experienced as far as the ego and the identity that I've tied to my team. Like, I am my team. My team is me. Like, those two things still in my mind are inseparable in a lot of ways. But as I've coached up my successor, Mel, and I'm handing things off to her, there's so much of, I'm trying not to get emotional. There's so much of my people ingrained in me and so much of me ingrained in the team that I don't think they're ever gonna be fully separate. I don't think I'll ever be able to look at them and not see little pieces of myself there or little pieces of my people in the things that I do. But on a larger scale, and what kind of makes it a little bit easier to step away is that it wasn't one of those things that felt like a perfect love all the time. Like, it struggled with imposter syndrome a lot, especially in the beginning. And even now as I'm departing, I'm like, was I that good of a leader? Because I see Mel, she's brand new manager. This is the first time, and she does things with such a passion and such a vigor and such conviction that I look at her and I'm like, did I ever do that? Did I ever have that feeling? And it's hard for me to try and remember that. Being a leader is not something that is glued to me. I think it is very easy to separate that part from myself.
Great leadership is not just about being in a position and then doing the best you can. It's about how you leave things and people behind as you move on. And it sounds like you figured out how to leave a legacy.
Either intentionally or unintentionally, yes.
If we were to make it intentionally, how would that look like?
Really, in some small way, is how I transition everything to Mel. If I'm doing this intentionally, if I have done my best for this team, it's knowing that I'm handing them off to somebody that wants the best for them. Kirsten, you're making me emotional. That to me is the most intentional thing I can do. Showing up for them every day, that's second nature. Supporting them in the way that they need, that is second nature. That's no longer intentional in my mind. But the thing that I can do right now today is to coach Mel, to bring her up. I just love them so much. So, in a lot of ways, to make sure that legacy is intentional.
It's interesting because earlier on you shared that the pivotal moment when you realized maybe leadership is not what I'm most passionate about because you were listening to others, your peers, being so caring and caring in a way that didn't resonate with you the same way. But now I'm hearing and seeing you, and I think you care extremely. Like, you are an excellent leader, an extremely caring leader and human being. And still you decided, no, leadership is not for me. Can you share more why that is?
But what it ended up boiling down to, and one of the things that I thought about a lot after listening to Aaron and Sydney and how they care about their teams, their passion for what they do versus what I'm experiencing is I have no desire to do this with any other team ever. I think it's because it's these individuals that I've gotten the pleasure of knowing, my first hires, my first trainees, and how I've gotten to know them as human beings. I'm an introvert, 100%. It takes a lot for me to build rapport. And frankly, the thought of starting over from zero or even just another new hire sounds exhausting. And so if I were faced with almost nearly identical situation, like a team of 6 people over here, they need a manager, can you go do it? I would dread it more than anything. Would I be able to do it? Would I have the technical proficiency to lead and manage the team well? Absolutely. I would be exhausted every single day. I don't want to be exhausted at the end of every single day. I have a family, I have hobbies, I have, passions outside of work. I want to be able to do those. I did not want to coach anybody but my existing team.
It's profound, that realization. And I wish more people would have the honesty, primarily with themselves, to say, this is just exhausting. I think that's a topic we don't talk about either enough or at all. I have not heard anyone in a leadership position very openly talk about how exhausting it is. Simon Sinek says it. You have to love it. You have to be passionate about it. I remember in Kim Scott's book, Radical Candor, she also talks about how at the beginning in her first startup, she just walked through the office, open space. Everybody was greeting her, stopping her, and everybody would just dump their life issues and stories on her. And by the time she got finally to her office, she was exhausted and annoyed that she didn't get anything done. So she was venting to her coach about it. The coach was like, well, that's your responsibility. If you're in a leadership position, you have to care about your people. You have to listen to them. It is part of your job. But we don't talk about how exhausting that part is and how it drains you. And I think that's where a lot of companies fail to support, the systems fail to support the leaders, especially after COVID hit the world. There was way more responsibility of the leaders. So now we not only have to care about business outcomes, we also have to care about people not breaking down on us, people not having permanent health issues, whether it's mental health or physical health. But no one talks about that and no one rewards that. So I find it really beautiful that you're able to say, I'm exhausted by this. I can't do this. And I dread it. The thought alone of having to repeat that with yet another person or even worse, yet another team is so dreadful to me that I just simply cannot. So I really commend that. It's brave, it's courageous, because when you think about it, what happens when we force ourselves to stay in a leadership position despite those reservations?
Yeah, absolutely. I burnout. That I'm in that space right now. At the time of recording this, I'm on my second week of PTO simply because I am so burnt out. When you're constantly giving from half empty or empty cup, you burn out, you get chafed, everything hurts. And because I'm an introvert, because it takes me time and like a lot of energy to build rapport with the group of people that I have now, I've known them. I got to fill my cup with them when I was still very much in love with the role and the position. And then over time, I know what they need. We're gonna cut this one-on-one short. You're gonna go take a walk. Like, come back when you're feeling better. Then we'll check in. Like that stuff. I with a brand new team, there is none of that. You have to take the long route every single time, and it can take years, especially if you have an IC that you don't gel with immediately. Sometimes you're like, okay, are they short because they're in a bad mood? Is this just how they communicate? That guessing game is exhausting. Trying to think about that or trying to anticipate that before every one on one, that sort of thing, it can build anxiety in the manager too. And then you just have to hope I do this right. It wears on you, especially time and time again. And when your team's capacity is low and your individual capacity is low and there's nothing filling you back up, it just burns. It rubs and it chafes and you can't get past it. You can't get over it. There is nothing else to do. And the more you tough through it or try to do, you burn out. Full stop.
We see it in Ted, where he is pouring so much into everybody else, but he is not taking care of himself. And he has those constant panic and anxiety attacks that get him at one point even to abandon his team in the middle of a game. And I think that that's a crucial moment. So when we think about the leadership responsibilities, we are constantly on. At least that's what happened to me too. It's like I'm constantly thinking about my team, even off hours. I log off and then I'm like, okay, tomorrow I have to think about how am I going to approach this situation, or I have this challenge. And there's seldom an off switch. Is it a systemic issue, or is it also an individual issue, or is it both?
I think it's both. When I when I first like came to Career Plug, I'd had such a poor work life balance. I worked in the kind of places that like you gave 110%, you got nothing back. Like it was very typical American. Like, you give them everything, you get a paycheck. Maybe you're supposed to work 40 hours a week, but next thing you know, you're working 45 and then 50, and then somehow you crept all the way up to like 60, and you don't know how it happened, but that's just how it is, especially when we have those sort of grind culture. Go, 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 do, you got to get that paycheck. And then when I came to Career Plug, it was very easy for me to justify working beyond the 40 hours. And then next thing I know, it's an hour of overtime each day. I had to have somebody sit me down and be like, boundaries are a thing. You're allowed to have them. And to look at myself and be like, okay, am I actually truly happy working 50 hours a week? Is that what I want to do? I'm already giving them 40 hours as a leader. you don't just stop there. You're cooking dinner and you're replaying one-on-ones and you're like, "Oh, I should have asked them about this," or "Flag this thing, I need to anticipate that," and then it creeps back in. So even though you get really good individually at the boundary of closing the laptop at the 40 hours, there's also the almost not having enough hours in the day to deal with the emotional baggage that you take with you of, "Okay, did I show up how they needed? Oh, I gotta make sure I check in on whatever it is." And in a lot of ways, there's a good feeling associated with anticipating those needs. But I can't anticipate every single need within 40 hours. So it follows me. And one of the things that I think companies across the board can do better is supporting their leaders and being like, hey, okay, we know that there's going to be stuff that lingers after you close the laptop. How can we help with that? Is it the number of direct reports you have? Is it the time that you're spending in meetings? Are there too many meetings? How is the time actually spent? Are we being efficient enough in this way? And so I think it's a little bit of both. It's got to be the individual setting the boundaries, but it's also systemic. Is the support system in place to address it?
Very true. Hence the idea of human centered leadership, where it's about the human system that we created and ensure that the people that are within that system are taken care of so that they show up happy. Because it blows my mind how often I hear people say, I'm burned out. And you look at what's the cause of it, and it's low capacity, it's too many meetings. It's inefficient workplace culture. It's inefficient collaboration or no collaboration, silos. And those are all leadership failures from the very, very top. Where if we were to address those as a system and not just look at, oh, do we have the right tools? Do we have the right revenues? But how can we make this more efficient and operate on a much better level? From a human perspective. And companies don't do that. I don't understand why. Burnout is so expensive. Giving people PTO, pay time off for medical reasons, not just vacation, giving them FMLA, all these things that are in place to, yes, protect the individuals. It could be prevented if we had from the beginning a better system. When you think about this transition and how you're going about it, what has been the biggest support to you that you would encourage other people to find?
The thing that has helped the most, and this is something that I learned from you very early on, was identifying your line of succession very early. Even if you plan to be in your role for 5 more years, you should already be like identifying and coaching up like your current leaders. Like anybody who has even a little bit of potential to replace you, be working with them today, yesterday even. I'm so fortunate to have Mel on my team because when I hired her into tier 2, she may not have known it at the time, but I saw her in the way that she moved and the way that she operated and things that she wanted to do. I saw in her a future leader. Whether she knew it or not at the time, I don't know. And so I would say to anybody, maybe you've fallen out of love with leadership, or maybe you want to go back into IC work so you're not burned the way that you are now. Identify your leaders early. Anybody who could come behind you, talk to them now. See what they're about now. So that way, when the day comes and you're like, okay, I've hit my limit, I'm done, I can't do anything else, you're not leaving, the people that you care about high and dry. You're not leaving things wide open. You're leaving them in good hands. You're leaving that legacy, and it's not, oh, hey, sorry, good luck, hope y'all figure it out. Like, get those people involved early and often. I think that alone has been the greatest support to have during this whole transition.
From a more personal perspective, what do you encourage people to find for their support system so that they don't feel lost in their path of transitioning out of leadership?
Communicate. Whoever your person is, talk to them about anything and everything. I have probably cried more in the past 3 months than I have in the past 5 years, simply because it's a lot of feelings. Even though I'm tired of it. I don't want to do it anymore. It should feel like a relief, and in a lot of ways it does. There's a lot of complicated emotions behind it because for a lot of companies and for a lot of people, this is the only way to get the paycheck that you want or you need to get the title to do the thing. And so the jump is scary. Regardless of where you're landing, it is a scary jump. And keeping that bottled up and inside is not healthy. It's going to fester, it's going to make you angry, it's going to make you irritated, and that's another impact you don't want to leave on your team. You don't want your last days to be like, "Okay, don't ask me anything." No, you wanna be there, you wanna be able to support them. So, on a personal level, whoever your person is, whether it's a spouse or a therapist or a leadership coach, a mentor, whoever it is, communicate with them. Talk to them about, what you're feeling, your next move, the thing that you're doing. Talk to your successor. The more you talk about it and the more that you communicate, you're in some way passively teaching another person. That to me is the biggest thing about any form of communication. Whether, shoot off a tweet into, the ether or whatever, when you're communicating, you're teaching. And so if you're talking to your successor or your peers or anybody who may be in a similar position, when you're talking about those feelings and those things that you're experiencing, they're learning from you. They know. I need to make sure that she doesn't hold up to my standard because we all have high standards for ourselves, but she knows exactly how much I've put into the team. When I talk to my peers and I'm like, hey, this is the thing that I'm working on now, they know for their own transition planning, they can bookmark it for the future and be like, okay, I can do this. When I'm venting to my spouse and being like, this is so hard, he knows, hey, she's going through a lot. And so to round all of that out, talk to your person, communicate whoever it is, find them and talk to them. That alone is going to be the biggest source of support that you can get.
Do you feel there is also a thought of I'm a failure because I'm stepping away or because I'm not liking it and so I'm stepping away because I just wasn't cut for it?
I have wrestled with that feeling a lot. There short answer, yes. That thought has entered my mind more than once. I mentioned earlier on that it was really important to me to show that whatever I step into doesn't look like a demotion. It at the very least needs to look like a lateral move because the optics do not look great. As Americans, especially my experience, going into a leadership role and then getting out of leadership never looks good. If I were to apply for another job and they're like, hey, you were a senior manager and then you went to an IC role, what happened? There's no good way to spin it that doesn't get very personal as far as, hey, I was exhausted, I was burnt out. And so the thought that to anybody outside it looks like a failure is very, very real. Is something that I wrestled with. And every now and then I do get that feeling, especially when I see, oh, really go above and beyond for the team. Like she's doing phenomenally. Like she's doing so much better than I expected her to this early on. And I see her like the thought does enter my mind of like, was I ever that passionate? Did I fail at this because I did not reach this level? But I also give myself the benefit of the doubt of recency bias. So there was a point that I had that passion and losing that passion is not failure. I did what I could do for as long as I could do, and that's the end of it. Now I'm gonna go do things that I enjoy.
I'm so excited for you and everybody deserves it. I think it's so much more important to pursue what you're passionate about than to stick with something that makes you miserable. And we see it so much in the workplace or work culture here in the US, hence also why so many people are miserable. The other question that I wanted to ask you to wrap up is also more personal because whenever I step away from a team, either because I moved to another company or I decided to have my own kind of gig, there is like the feeling of loss, and it's a sentiment that I can't even fully understand myself. I leave after I have poured my entire being into that team, into that company even, but primarily the team. Like for me, it's always more about the team, similar to Ted Lasso. He really cares about the team more than he actually cares about football or AFC as a whole. Like so I pour my entire being and soul into the people that I lead. And I walk away thinking they equally care about me. But then contact drops off, or there's not the same kind of follow-up support as I had supported them. And it always makes me sad, but it always also makes me realize, am I just being selfish? Like I didn't lead them to get something back from them, right? I led them because I wanted them to succeed in their role and in their life, in their career. So who am I to ask the same support or care back? And yet I'm really fighting with myself with that feeling. So how is it for you stepping away from leadership?
Yeah, I think you're hitting on something very, very real and very, very relatable. I'm gonna try not to get emotional about this one too.
I
I've
know
been
it makes me emotional too. So if we cry together.
these are people that for the past few years, like you said, you've poured yourself into. You've done everything you can. And I think there's several things to hit on. Going back to the identity thing and you're paid to do a job, you do the job. I know for a fact that I care very deeply about these people as human beings and they do care about me. But at the end of the day, if we don't have weekly touch points or daily and we never hear from each other, but the amount of care is still the same. And when you've poured so much of yourself into them and you've been there for the venting sessions and the one-on-ones, it's very hard to be like, okay, I've given all this to you. I've removed myself from that primary support position. When do I get it back? Like where is the outreach to me? When does that happen? And I think it's a very normal thing because we're humans. We crave connection. We want to be tethered to other people in a lot of ways. But it's also essential to remind yourself of, hey, this was a job. I did my job and I did it well. Like Ted says all the time, he's most concerned about making sure they're the best they can be on and off the pitch. It's okay. If they don't reach out to me, I get it. If we don't stay in contact, I understand. Because as bad as this sounds, the way we came in contact is kind of artificial. We did not meet organically. We did not come together in an organic space over shared interest or shared hobbies or anything like that. At the end of the day, they were my direct report. I was their manager. I don't know exactly how I'm going to feel. Ask me again in 6 months. I think if they're not reaching out to me needing something, then I did my job well. I have transitioned and done things well. Will I hate not hearing from them? Absolutely. If I reach out to them and they don't respond, is it going to break my heart a little bit? Absolutely. But I will be able to know that I did everything that I could.
I needed to hear that. So I appreciate you sharing this so honestly and vulnerably with me. And you're right. If they don't reach out to me, it's because I probably did a good job in leaving them in a good place. So that makes me feel good, negating or invalidating that there's also grief of losing that connection. Because you're right. Suddenly they're gone. Suddenly I'm not part of their life anymore, even if I would wish they would be still part of mine. But that's also not how it goes. So, wow. You left me with my heart full of good feelings and understanding and love for the craft and appreciation for leadership, and also a lot of appreciation of normalizing that it's okay to step away.
Thank you for letting me tell my story. I hope this lands with somebody who maybe they're in a similar position or will be, and it offers them at least a little bit of guidance.
And who knows, in 6 months, I will hopefully hear back from you and see where you're at. If you had a Roy Kent development where you kind of cycle through things to come back to leadership in just a different position in a different setting. But also, just a reminder to everybody, leadership doesn't have to be a title. It doesn't have to be managing people. Leadership can be so many different ways. I believe that in one way or another, Taylor, you are a leader regardless of whether you have a team underneath you or not.
Thank you. I think that's the muscle that I need to work on, the lowercase L leadership.
All right, that's a wrap for today. If this episode gave you something to think about, do me a quick favor. Hit follow or subscribe so you don't miss what's next. You can find me on YouTube and Instagram at kirsten.penalosa, with me on LinkedIn, and if you know someone who'd love this conversation, send it their way. Sharing is caring after all. Until next time, stay curious and keep showing up.